Emma Larson was a 24-year-old waitress who worked at a small diner on the outskirts of New York City. She had a warm smile that could brighten anyone's day, but behind that cheerful demeanor was a life weighed down by struggles. Emma had grown up in a humble neighborhood and had learned early on the value of hard work. Her mother, who had passed away a few years ago, was her greatest inspiration. Emma's childhood dream was to become a pianist, but life had other plans. She had to quit her music school after her mother's illness drained their savings, and now she spent her days serving tables and her nights dreaming of melodies she couldn't afford to play. One rainy evening, a man named Charles Donovan walked into the diner. Charles was a wealthy businessman known for his arrogance and sharp tongue. He was hosting a grand party at his mansion in a week, celebrating the success of his latest venture. Charles was the type who thrived on power and control, and he enjoyed making others feel small. When he saw Emma, with her kind eyes and humble uniform, he immediately judged her as someone insignificant. Charles called her over to take his order. "What's your name?" he asked, barely glancing up from his phone. "Emma," she replied politely. "Emma, do you play piano?" he asked, noticing the small silver charm of a piano on the necklace she wore. It was a keepsake from her mother. Emma hesitated. "I used to." "Used to?" Charles smirked. "That's a shame. Well, maybe you can still entertain my guests." Emma's brows furrowed. "I'm sorry, sir. I don't understand." Charles leaned back in his chair. "I'm throwing a party next Saturday. I'll pay you double your week's wages to come and play. Surely you could use the money." Emma could feel the condescension in his tone, but the mention of money caught her attention. Her rent was overdue, and she could barely make ends meet. She reluctantly agreed, though something about Charles's smirk made her uneasy. The day of the party arrived, and Emma stood at the entrance of Charles's lavish mansion. The chandelier sparkled like a cascade of diamonds, and the air was filled with the chatter of New York's elite. Emma felt out of place in her simple dress, clutching her mother's old sheet music for comfort. Charles greeted her with a mockingly cheerful tone. "Ah, the pianist has arrived. Everyone, this is Emma. She's here to entertain us tonight." He led her to the grand piano in the center of the room. The crowd gathered, their curious eyes making Emma's hands tremble. She hadn't played in years, and she could feel their judgment before she even touched the keys. "Go on," Charles said loudly, his voice dripping with sarcasm. "Show us what you've got." Emma took a deep breath and began to play. At first, her fingers stumbled, and a few guests chuckled. But as she closed her eyes and let the music take over, something magical happened. The notes flowed effortlessly, painting a picture of sorrow, hope, and resilience. The room fell silent, captivated by the emotion in her performance. When she finished, there was a moment of stunned silence before the room erupted into applause. Charles, who had intended to humiliate her, stood frozen, unable to hide his astonishment. Later that evening, a woman named Margaret approached Emma. Margaret was an acclaimed music producer who had been invited to the party. "That was breathtaking," she said. "Where did you learn to play like that?" Emma shared her story, and Margaret was moved. "You have a rare gift," she said. "I'd like to help you." Before Emma could respond, Charles interrupted. "Help her?" he scoffed. "She's just a waitress. Don't let one performance fool you." Margaret shot him a sharp look. "Talent has nothing to do with status, Mr. Donovan. It's a shame you can't see that." The first twist came a week later when Margaret invited Emma to her studio for an audition. Emma's talent shone even brighter under professional guidance, and Margaret offered her a contract. But as Emma's dreams began to take shape, she discovered something shocking. Margaret was Charles's estranged sister. Margaret revealed the truth during a lunch meeting. "Charles and I grew up in a wealthy family, but he always looked down on people who didn't meet his standards. I left that world to build my career on my own terms. He's always been bitter about it." Emma was stunned but grateful for Margaret's support. "I'll prove him wrong," she said with determination. The second twist unfolded at a charity gala where Emma was set to perform her debut concert. Charles was among the attendees, invited by Margaret as a peace offering. As Emma played the same melody she had performed at Charles's party, something in him shifted. He remembered his late mother, who had loved music and had always encouraged kindness. For the first time, Charles felt genuine remorse for the way he had treated Emma. After the concert, he approached her. "Emma, I owe you an apology. I underestimated you, and I'm sorry." Emma looked at him, her eyes filled with a mix of surprise and forgiveness. "Thank you, Mr. Donovan. I hope you've learned that everyone has a story worth listening to." Emma's career soared, and she never forgot the journey that brought her to that stage. Charles, inspired by her resilience and Margaret's influence, began funding music programs for underprivileged children, hoping to make amends in his own way. And as for Emma, she continued to play, her music touching hearts and reminding everyone that true talent and determination could rise above any challenge. That's the story, friends. I hope you enjoyed it. It was a pleasure sharing it with you all. Don't forget to comment below and let me know where you're watching from. It's always fun to see the global reach of these stories. And if you haven't already, please hit that subscribe button for more amazing stories, tips, and tricks. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.